At 2:13 in the morning, my phone screamed 3 times. The first alert was black, which meant a direct threat to Voss Global Logistics. The second was red, which meant a critical failure inside Helix Robotics. The third was gold, which meant a crisis involving a protected guest at Delacroix International. 3 companies, 3 billionaire chief executives, 3 emergencies that could have erased several $billion before sunrise. And somehow, all 3 alerts directed me to the same conference room. I ran across the 47th floor of Meridian Tower in the heels I had put on 16 hours earlier. My laptop struck my hip. My security badge bounced against my collarbone. I was already opening response plans in my head when the glass doors parted. Evelyn Voss sat at the left end of the table in a charcoal suit, perfectly composed except for the silver pen turning between her fingers. Juno Park sat at the right end in a leather jacket over an expensive silk shirt, pretending not to watch the door. Sloane Delacroix occupied the center chair in midnight blue satin, with 4 covered dinner plates and a vase of white roses arranged before her. No lawyers. No security team. No smoke, sirens, frightened guests, or rebellious machines. Just the 3 women who employed me, staring as if I had arrived late to my own kidnapping. I stopped inside the doorway. "Where is the emergency?" Evelyn set down her pen. "There is a serious discrepancy in tomorrow's risk briefing." "Which discrepancy?" "You scheduled my review for 8:30. Her cool gray eyes shifted toward Juno. "Her review begins at 8. Juno leaned forward. "That is not my emergency. My emergency is that she has eaten half a protein bar since noon." "You used a red systems code because I skipped dinner?" "You ignored my normal messages." Sloane lifted one elegant hand. "For accuracy, Mara, I used the protected guest code because the chef prepared sea bass, and you once said it was your favorite." I looked at the 4th place setting. It stood exactly between them. "You triggered 3 corporate emergency protocols to make me come to dinner?" "I triggered 1, Sloane said. "They copied me." "I sent mine first," Juno objected. Evelyn's expression remained calm. "Neither of you used an encrypted channel. Your intentions were obvious." "So you decided to join them?" "I decided you should not be alone with either of them at 2 in the morning." Silence fell. Juno smiled at the ceiling. Sloane studied the roses. Evelyn finally stopped turning her pen. I put my laptop on the table and opened the emergency audit log. Black codes can stop cargo aircraft. Red codes can shut down active laboratories. Gold codes can lock an entire hotel. Do you understand what could happen if your team stopped trusting these alerts? All 3 women looked at me. Not through me, not past me, at me. 4 months earlier, I would have traded almost anything to be noticed in a room like that. That night, I understood the price. I canceled all 3 alerts, uncovered the 4th plate, and divided the untouched dinner into containers for the overnight security staff. Then I took the chair at the head of the table, instead of the one they had placed between them. "Nobody leaves until I know how long this has been happening." Juno's smile disappeared. Sloane folded her hands. Evelyn looked almost proud. That was the night I stopped managing their emergencies and started investigating why 3 billionaire CEOs were so afraid to let me leave. 4 months earlier, none of them knew my name. I was a senior operations coordinator for Meridian Alliance, which sounded impressive until anyone asked what I actually did. Then the answer became less glamorous. I corrected schedules other people broke. I found rooms after executives changed cities without warning. I remembered which supplier needed written approval, which director needed to hear bad news privately, and which vice president would ignore an email until the same sentence appeared in a spreadsheet. If a launch succeeded, senior leadership thanked the strategy team. If it failed, they asked operations why nobody had predicted it. I had worked there for 5 years. My performance reviews contained words like reliable, calm, essential, and not yet visible enough for leadership. Essential was the one that should have warned me. The Meridian Alliance had been created for Project Aurora, an ambitious partnership between three companies that had no natural reason to trust one another. Voss Global Logistics would move medical supplies and luxury goods through a new automated distribution network. Helix Robotics would provide the machines that sorted, delivered, and tracked them. Delacroix International would install the system across its hotels, private hospitals, and conference centers. The public launch was supposed to prove that the entire network could function in real time. Instead, 12 hours before the demonstration, everything failed. A port strike delayed the physical cargo. A corrupted update sent 40 Helix delivery units to the wrong loading zone. Then a storm cut power to the Delacroix Grand, where 600 investors were already arriving. The Alliance command room became a museum of expensive panic. Directors blamed vendors. Vendors blamed weather. Legal teams advised everyone to say nothing. Public relations drafted 3 separate statements that contradicted one another. I stood near the back wall with a clipboard, while people whose salaries had commas argued about who would be humiliated first. Then Evelyn Voss entered. The room quieted before the doors had fully closed. She was 37, tall, and severe enough to make silence feel like an order. Her black hair was pinned low at her neck. Her charcoal suit held no wrinkle despite the rain outside. She listened for exactly 90 seconds before pointing at the logistics screen. Who approved this sequence? Nobody answered. I did. No one. The system is displaying the original sequence, not the storm revision. 30 faces turned toward me. Evelyn's gray eyes narrowed. Name? Mara Ellis, Senior Operations Coordinator. Can you prove that? I connected my laptop to the central display and showed her the timestamps. The storm revision had been accepted by Voss Dispatch, but rejected by the Helix interface because one authorization certificate had expired. The cargo isn't lost, I said. It's waiting at Pier 9 for a routing confirmation the robots can't read. The command room doors opened again. Juno Park walked in, carrying a dismantled control panel under one arm. She was 32, brilliant, impatient, and famous for presenting billion-dollar inventions in sneakers. Her dark hair fell in a sharp bob around a face that could shift from laughter to calculation in a breath. She dropped the panel on the table, looked at my display, and pointed at me. You found the certificate conflict? Yes. Marry me. The room went silent again. Juno glanced at Evelyn. Professionally. That is not what that word means, Evelyn said. It could. Before I could decide whether either of them was joking, Sloane Delacroix appeared on the wall screen from the darkened hotel lobby. At 35, Sloane had the polished beauty of someone raised beneath chandeliers. Her auburn hair fell over one shoulder. A pearl pin held the collar of her cream blouse. Behind her, hotel staff guided guests by emergency lanterns, while rain struck the glass entrance. I am delighted that you are socializing, she said, but my elevators are stopped, my kitchens are losing refrigeration, and 600 investors are learning how quickly candlelight stops feeling romantic. The backup generators should be active, a facilities director said. They are, I replied, but the robotics charging bank is drawing priority power. Juno frowned. That bank is supposed to isolate during an outage. It would, if the hotel system recognized the Helix units as equipment. It is reading them as protected medical devices. Sloane tilted her head. Can you correct it? I looked at the 3 systems, the weather map, and the line of red notices multiplying across the screen. Yes, but everyone has to stop protecting her own company for 20 minutes. That was not a safe thing to say to 3 CEOs. It was also true. I assigned Voss drivers to collect the demonstration cargo from Pier 9 manually. I asked Juno to roll the Helix network back to the previous certificate and send the units into low-power mode. I told Sloane to move the investors from the ballroom into the open kitchen gallery, where emergency power was strongest, and the chefs could turn the delay into a private tasting event. Then I called the union representative at the port. My directors had spent 2 hours trying to force exemptions from the strike. I asked which movement the workers would consider safe. The representative agreed to release 2 electric vehicles if managers did not operate them. and the medical containers were handled first. Evelyn watched me negotiate. Juno watched me repair the authorization chain. Sloan watched me turn 600 stranded investors into guests at an exclusive midnight preview. At 4:12 in the morning, the first Helix unit delivered a sealed medical case across the candlelit gallery. The investors applauded, as if the storm had been arranged for them. Project Aurora launched on time. My own vice president shook my hand and called me Miranda. Evelyn corrected him. Her name is Mara. That was the first time she said it. Juno immediately wrote my name on the back of her hand with a marker. Sloan sent a cup of tea to the command desk with a note that said, "For the woman who taught 3 empires to cooperate." I kept that note. At first, being noticed felt like a promotion. The following Monday, the Meridian board asked me to attend what I thought was a routine launch review. I arrived with performance data and found Evelyn, Juno, and Sloan seated in a private conference room. There was one empty chair. It stood between them. The chair should have warned me too. The board chair explained that Project Aurora needed 60 days of executive integration. Because I understood all 3 operating systems and had demonstrated unusual composure, I would serve as shared executive assistant to the 3 CEOs. I looked at my vice president. My current role? Temporarily reassigned. And after 60 days? You return to operations with enhanced leadership visibility. Visibility. The word I had been missing. I accepted. Evelyn gave me a black leather planner divided into exact 15-minute intervals. "Nothing enters my calendar without a purpose," she said. Juno slid a tablet toward me. Its home screen displayed 17 unfinished prototypes and a cartoon comet. "Everything has a purpose," she said. "Sometimes I discover it later." Sloan offered me a slim gold pen. "People reveal themselves by what they request," she said. "Listen to the request beneath the request." I thought they were teaching me how to work for them. In reality, they were telling me exactly how each of them would become dangerous. Then the emergencies began. Evelyn created the first one at 6:45 on a Thursday evening. A black notification appeared on my screen. Executive continuity concern, immediate private review. I canceled dinner with my sister and hurried to Evelyn's office. She stood beside the glass wall overlooking the city. 2 bowls of soup waited on the table. "What happened?" I asked. "Your schedule has become unsustainable." "That is not an executive continuity threat. You coordinate executive continuity. The executive in that phrase is you. Your absence would affect me." The words were delivered in the same tone she used to discuss fuel shortages. That made them more dangerous, not less. I glanced at the soup. "Did you manufacture a crisis because I skipped lunch?" "No." "Evelyn." I upgraded a concern. She pulled out a chair for me. I should have left. Instead, I sat. She asked about my sister. She remembered that Leah was studying architecture and that I had promised to help review her portfolio. When I mentioned rescheduling dinner, Evelyn's gaze lowered to the table. "You should not have canceled something important." "Then do not label soup as a corporate emergency." "Understood." For 9 days she obeyed. Then Juno issued a red laboratory alert at 11:20 on a Saturday night. The message said one of the Aurora units had locked itself inside a test chamber and would respond only to my voice. I arrived expecting damaged code. The robot was sitting peacefully in the middle of the laboratory, projecting a field of tiny stars across the ceiling. Juno lay beneath them on a blanket with 2 cartons of noodles. "It looks responsive," I said. "Only because you came." "I have not spoken yet." "It sensed your badge." I held up the badge. "This was in my bag." Juno considered that. "Then it sensed your emotional frequency." "You built it." "I built it to be intuitive." The robot rolled toward me and offered a spoon. I should have been furious. Instead, I laughed. That was Juno's particular danger. She turned every boundary into a game, and every game into a moment I secretly wanted to keep. We ate noodles under artificial stars. She told me the laboratory felt too quiet after everyone left. She admitted she sometimes kept machines running because the sound made the building seem less empty. You could invite someone without declaring a systems failure, I said. Juno stared at the projected stars. Would you come? You could ask. She looked at me then, suddenly serious. I do not know how to ask for things I cannot build. My anger softened. It did not disappear. Learn. Sloane waited 2 weeks before using a gold code. By then, I believed I could recognize their patterns. I was wrong. Her alert reported a diplomatic incident involving a royal guest at the Delacroix Winter Garden. I rushed across the city and found the restaurant closed to the public. One table stood beneath an arch of flowering vines. Sloane sat alone beside a candle. Where is the guest? Her flight was canceled. And the diplomatic incident? She may be offended tomorrow. You used a protected guest emergency for a person who is not in the country. Her absence created a reservation. That sentence is not helping you. Sloane rose. Unlike Juno, she did not smile. Unlike Evelyn, she did not defend the logic. I wanted one evening in which neither of them could interrupt us. The honesty stopped me. So you lied? Yes. Why? Because when I invite you to dinner, you ask whether it is business. When I say no, you become careful. When I say yes, you stay. The candlelight warmed her expression, but there was loneliness beneath the elegance. That is manipulation, I said quietly. Yes. She did not look away. I am sorry, Mara. It was the best apology any of them had offered. I stayed for 10 minutes. Long enough to explain why an emergency code was not a romantic invitation. Then I left before dinner. The next morning, all gold alerts required approval from hotel security. I thought Sloane had understood. Then I audited the emergency codes. There had been 27 in 6 weeks. Only 4 were real. Evelyn had marked routine briefings as continuity threats whenever another CEO occupied my afternoon. Juno had reported prototype instability on days I planned to work from home. Sloane had created protected guest reviews whenever Evelyn scheduled dinner meetings. Some alerts canceled one another. Others moved me from building to building like a piece on a board. The emergencies were fake. Their feelings were not. I learned that during a stormy evening in Evelyn's office. We were reviewing shipping projections when the building lights flickered. For half a second, her hand closed around my wrist. The lights steadied. She released me immediately. Sorry. Evelyn Voss never apologized for instinct. I closed the report. What are you afraid of? Power interruptions create security vulnerabilities. That is not what I asked. Her face became still. I had seen directors retreat from that expression. I waited. Finally, she crossed to the window. My former chief of staff sold our route data to a competitor. He worked beside me for 8 years. Afterward, every person assigned to my office either feared me or wanted something from me. And you think I do not? You want the work to be correct. I also want a career. I know. There was something in the way she said it, a fraction too soft, a fraction too certain. I noticed it. I did not understand it yet. Evelyn touched the silver pen I had once borrowed during a meeting. When you enter a room, I do not have to question whether the truth entered with you. My breath caught. Evelyn could have purchased loyalty from almost anyone. Trust was the thing she could not buy. Juno's confession came in an elevator. We were descending from her laboratory when the car stopped between floors. The emergency lights came on. I reached for the call panel, but Juno slid down the wall and covered her ears. All her usual speed vanished. I sat beside her without touching her. Do you want my hand? She nodded. Her fingers locked around mine. I counted breaths until the car moved again. Later, on the lobby floor, she told me her co-founder had abandoned Helix on the morning of its first funding vote. He had emptied their primary account and left her to face the investors alone. I survived, she said. That was the problem. Everyone decided I could survive anything. You can survive without me too. I know. Her grip loosened. I just do not want every room to become quiet when you leave. Juno noticed my patience. Evelyn noticed my competence. Sloane noticed the woman hiding beneath both. Her confession arrived without an emergency. She asked whether she could walk me to the train after a hotel review. No driver, no private dining room, no hidden reservation. I said yes. We stood beneath the station awning while rain silvered the street. People have studied me since I was a child, she said. They notice the name, the hotels, the invitations. They notice what standing near me could open. I notice that you thank service staff when no one is watching. Sloane looked at me. Exactly. The train arrived with a rush of wind. She did not ask me to miss it. That restraint moved me more than another private dinner would have. I began to care for them. That is the truth I resisted longest. I cared for Evelyn's quiet vigilance, for the way she moved a glass of water within my reach without interrupting a meeting. I cared for Juno's bright disorder and the messages she sent whenever the moon looked strange above her laboratory. I cared for Sloane's careful grace and her ability to make a tired housekeeper feel more important than an ambassador. Being wanted by one of them would have been overwhelming. Being wanted by all three felt impossible. It also felt wonderful. For a while. The 60-day assignment ended on a Monday. Nobody mentioned it. My access badge still opened all 3 executive floors. My calendar continued filling. Payroll changed my assignment code from temporary to strategic support without changing my title or salary. I asked my vice president when I would return to operations. The CEOs requested a short extension. How short? 30 days. 30 days became 45. Then 90. Each time I asked, I received a different answer. Project Aurora remained delicate. The integration was almost complete. The board needed continuity. A replacement search was active. But I coordinated the interviews, and no replacement interviews appeared. That was the first crack. The second was my leadership fellowship. 8 months earlier, before any of the CEOs knew my name, I had applied to the North Star Executive Fellowship. It was a 6-month program for operations leaders, ready to move into corporate strategy. Only 12 people were selected each year. Graduates returned as directors, vice presidents, and sometimes founders. My first application had failed. My second reached the final round. After Project Aurora, I believed I finally had the visibility my reviews demanded. The acceptance announcement date passed without an email. I assumed I had failed again. Then a North Star administrator called my personal number. Ms. Ellis, we are reviewing next year's candidates and hoped your availability had changed. I stood beside my desk, watching Evelyn speak through the glass wall of her office. Changed from what? The administrator hesitated. Your employer declined to release you from essential executive duties. We were told you had withdrawn. The office sounds faded. Who told you that? The response came through the Meridian Board liaison with letters from all 3 partner companies. All 3. I asked her to send the record. 3 minutes later, the documents arrived. Evelyn's letter described me as indispensable to operational continuity. Juno's called my departure an unacceptable systems risk. Sloane's said releasing me during the integration period would endanger international partnerships. None of them said I had withdrawn. They did not need to. Together, their refusals made the decision for me. Attached to the record was my original North Star evaluation. Accepted, pending employer release. I had won the fellowship. They had quietly taken it away. For several minutes, I could not move. On my desk sat Evelyn's sharpened pencils, Juno's comet sticker, and Sloane's Monday flower. The things that had made me feel seen now looked like markers around a cage. Attention was not advancement. Admiration was not authority. Being needed was not the same as being respected. Juno appeared first, carrying 2 cups of coffee. Good news, I defeated the machine, so these were made by a person. She saw my face and stopped. Mara? I turned my screen toward her. She read the first letter. The color left her expression. Evelyn emerged from her office. Sloane stepped from the elevator moments later. I wondered if they had some private instinct for the instant their shared secret broke. Soon all three stood around my desk. Again. Around me. You blocked North Star, I said. Nobody denied it. Evelyn spoke first. The request arrived during a critical integration phase. So you rejected it without telling me. We intended to create an internal position of equal value. When? Silence. Juno set down the coffee. We were working on it. You had 3 months. The boards were fighting over which company would employ you. Then you should have told me. Sloane's face was pale. Yes. Evelyn looked at her sharply. Do not, Sloane said. Do not turn this into a negotiation. She is right. I looked at the 3 women who could command companies across continents and saw the same fear I had seen in the conference room at 2:13 in the morning. Not fear that I would fail, fear that I would leave. Was that why you extended my assignment? Juno's eyes lowered. Was that why no replacement interviews happened? Evelyn answered. Yes. Did any of you plan to ask what I wanted? No one spoke. My voice remained calm. That made them listen harder. You did not protect my career. You kept it small enough to fit between your calendars. Juno flinched. Sloane closed her eyes. Evelyn stood absolutely still. I trusted you, I said. I cared for you. All of you, in different ways, and you used the part of me that takes responsibility seriously to make sure I could never walk away without feeling guilty. That was not our intention, Evelyn said. Intention does not return 6 months of my life. I opened 3 files on my screen. My resignation letter, the emergency code audit, and a list of every duty I had performed beyond my title. My assignment ends after the Aurora International Summit next Friday. Until then, all contact will be limited to genuine business needs. No gifts, no personal drivers, no private dinners, no altered schedules, no emergency codes without independent verification. Juno's voice cracked. And after Friday? I leave Meridian. She took 1 step toward me, then stopped herself. That small act of restraint nearly broke my heart. Evelyn read the resignation letter once. North Star's current program has begun, she said, but I can secure a deferred place. You will send them a correction. You will not secure anything for me. Her jaw tightened. Then she nodded. Sloane removed the key to a Delacroix town car from my desk and placed it in her bag. Juno deleted something from her phone. What was that? I asked. The location permission on your company tablet. I stared at her. It was for emergency routing, she said weakly. Delete every copy. Done. Affection was not permission. They had learned that too late. For the next 8 days, the executive floor became painfully professional. Evelyn sent requests through proper channels. Juno stopped using color codes that were not real. Sloane did not arrange a single accidental dinner. The silence should have felt like freedom. Instead, it felt like walking through rooms after the furniture had been removed. I missed them. I did not change my decision. The Aurora International Summit opened on Friday morning at the Delacroix Grand. 4,000 delegates filled the hotel and adjoining convention center. Health ministers toured the automated medical delivery system. Investors watched Helix units move supplies from Voss containers into secure demonstration clinics. Every major alliance director was present. So were 9 board members who had ignored my promotion requests for years. At 10:17, the first real emergency arrived. The lights stayed on. That was what made it dangerous. Nothing dramatic happened at first. A delivery unit paused outside a clinic. A freight elevator opened on the wrong floor. 3 guest badges stopped working. Then every executive screen displayed the same message. Authority conflict. Override pending. Juno reached for her tablet. Do not connect, I said. She froze. Across the hall, 20 Helix units turned toward the central ballroom at the same time. Evelyn's security chief called. Voss containers were being released from the loading bay without destination confirmation. Sloan received reports that hotel master keys had stopped updating. 3 separate failures. 1 shared system. The summit director looked at me. Which protocol? I opened the emergency dashboard. Black, red, and gold alerts flashed across the screen. Hundreds of them. Someone had learned that our executives treated emergency codes as personal shortcuts. The false alerts had created overlapping exceptions in the system. Now, a malicious process was using those exceptions to request authority from all 3 companies at once. Every approval made it stronger. Nobody responds to an electronic alert, I said. We are switching to voice confirmation and manual control. An Alliance vice president shook his head. You do not have authority to suspend the network. Then find someone who understands it before those robots enter a ballroom containing 1,200 people. He looked toward Evelyn. Old Mara would have waited for her to defend me. I did not. I took off my assistant badge and placed it on the table. My temporary assignment ended months ago. My authority was never updated because keeping me undefined was convenient. I will not accept liability for a system I am not permitted to command. The board chair turned to the 3 CEOs. Can any of your teams coordinate this response? Evelyn answered first. Not as quickly as Mara can. Juno closed her tablet. My engineers know Helix. They do not know the hotel or the freight network. Sloan looked at the units advancing down the corridor. Give her what she asks. The board chair faced me. What do you ask? The building alarms began to sound. For 5 years, I had accepted responsibility first and hoped recognition would follow. Not this time. Emergency appointment as Director of Joint Operations, effective now. Independent authority across Aurora systems. My own response team. Direct reporting access to the Alliance Board, written protection from retaliation, and complete control of my professional calendar. The vice president who once called me Miranda stared at me. This is not the time to negotiate a promotion. You are right, the time was 3 months ago. A crash sounded from the ballroom entrance. One of the robots had struck a locked service door. I kept my eyes on the board chair. Decide. She called for a vote. Evelyn raised her hand first. Then Juno. Then Sloan. The remaining votes followed. Unanimous. The board chair removed the director credential from her own conference packet, wrote my name across the temporary strip, and handed it to me. Director Ellis, save the summit. I clipped the badge to my jacket. Evelyn, shut the loading bay physically. Use drivers and paper manifests. Nothing moves without 2 handwritten signatures. She was already calling security. Done. Juno. Isolate every Helix unit from the central network. No wireless commands. Send engineers to control them in local mode. That will blind us for 6 minutes. I know. She nodded. Doing it. Sloan, move the ballroom guests into the garden wing. Tell them this is a live resilience demonstration. Keep them calm and away from automated doors. Sloan picked up the public address handset. How much time? Give me 12 minutes. Her gaze held mine. You have 15. They moved. No arguments. No competition. For the first time since I began working for them, 3 of the most powerful women in the country followed my calendar. I built a command station on the hotel's isolated kitchen network. The audit showed 1 master path formed from Evelyn's continuity exception, Juno's laboratory override, and Sloan's protected guest code. Their 3 false emergencies had joined into 1 cage around the summit. We cannot revoke it while it is active, an engineer said. Then we make the systems disagree. I ordered Voss to classify the incident as a physical freight hold, Helix as local maintenance, and Delacroix as a guest service drill. The hostile process could not merge 3 different truths. Its authority split. Now. Juno's engineers killed the wireless relays. Voss security sealed the containers. Delacroix staff reset the doors floor by floor. The robots stopped 3 feet from the ballroom. Sloan kept the investors calm. Evelyn moved supplies by hand. Juno disconnected the nearest unit herself. They were not above the work. They had simply forgotten that I was not beneath them. 17 minutes after the first alarm, the network was contained. The summit continued. But I was not finished. The board assembled in the command room that afternoon. Legal counsel wanted the incident described as an external cyber attack. Public relations wanted to emphasize the successful response. The vice president wanted the emergency appointment to expire at midnight. I connected my audit to the main screen. 27 false emergencies appeared beside the 3 letters that had blocked my fellowship. The attacker found an opening because executive authority was repeatedly misused for personal access, I said. That is not an external problem, it is a governance failure. Nobody looked at the screen for long. They looked at Evelyn, Juno, and Sloane. Evelyn stood first. The black code exceptions were mine. Mara warned me. I continued. Juno rose beside her. I created the red overrides. I also enabled location access on her device without meaningful consent. Sloane stood last. I misused protected guest protocols and participated in blocking her fellowship. The responsibility is ours. The board chair's expression hardened. You understand the consequences of placing those admissions on record? Yes, Evelyn said. For once, they did not try to protect one another from me. They told the truth for me. I displayed my employment record, 5 years of expanded duties, 3 rejected promotion requests, 1 temporary assignment extended without consent, 1 fellowship acceptance concealed behind executive letters. I am not asking for a reward because I solved today's crisis, I said. I am asking you to correct the structure that helped create it. My proposal established a permanent joint operations office, independent of all 3 companies. It included transparent emergency permissions, rotating audits, and a protected development path for every coordinator whose invisible labor held the alliance together. It also named me as founding director. My proposal passed. Not unanimously. It did not need to. The board restored my North Star acceptance and offered a deferred place. I asked North Star to hold the decision for 1 week while I designed my office. That choice belonged to me now. After the meeting, the 3 CEOs waited in the empty ballroom. The chandeliers were dim. Rain pressed silver lines against the tall windows, just as it had on the night Project Aurora began. I approached them with my new badge clipped above my heart. Juno looked at it and gave a fragile smile. Director Ellis sounds terrifying. Good. Her smile vanished again. Are you still leaving? I resigned as your assistant. Evelyn's expression revealed nothing, but her hands were empty. No pen, no planner, nothing to control. And us? She asked. It was the first truly personal question I had ever heard her ask, without hiding it inside business language. I looked at each of them. I do care for you. That is why what you did hurt as much as it did. Sloane nodded. We know. No, you understand the consequence. I am not sure you understand the damage yet. I took a breath. You made me doubt every kind thing. Every coffee, every meal, every moment that felt honest. I need space to discover which memories were affection and which were strategy. Juno wiped quickly beneath one eye. How much space? 30 days. Exactly? Evelyn asked. Do not make a countdown. She looked almost offended by how accurately I knew her. During those 30 days, you will not contact me socially. You will not compete over my schedule. You will not send gifts. You will not ask my staff where I am. You will not manufacture reasons to enter my office. Sloane glanced at Juno. That last rule was for all of you, I said. Understood, Sloane replied. At the end of 30 days, if you still want something real, you may ask. Separately. Once. I may say no. Juno inhaled shakily. And if you say yes to one of us? That will be my decision. And if you say yes to more than one? Sloane asked. Evelyn looked at her. Sloane lifted one shoulder. We have already established that pretending not to wonder is unhelpful. For the first time all day, I almost laughed. Then we will have an honest conversation in which nobody treats me like territory. I walked away before any of them could turn hope into a negotiation. The 30 days were quiet. Evelyn did not call. Juno did not send a single purple alert. Sloane did not arrange any coincidence more elaborate than passing me in a scheduled board meeting. Professional contact continued because Project Aurora still existed, but it changed. They requested time through my office. They accepted no. They read agendas before meetings and left when meetings ended. Evelyn waited outside my office instead of entering uninvited. Juno sent technical notices through my response team, even when a purple message sat unsent on her tablet. At a board dinner, Sloane found my place card between theirs and quietly moved it to the head of the table. They were not perfect, but every mistake was corrected without making me responsible for their disappointment. Change looked awkward on them. That made it believable. Meanwhile, I built the Joint Operations Office. I promoted the junior analyst who had noticed the first badge failures. I gave coordinators decision rights instead of praise. I replaced the phrase "other duties" as required with written limits. I created an anonymous channel for reporting executive misuse. Then I made my choice about North Star. I accepted the deferred fellowship on a hybrid schedule, which allowed me to lead the new office while completing 2 international residencies. The board approved it without asking whether my absence would inconvenience anyone. Evelyn rearranged her own quarterly review around my first residency. Juno assigned a deputy for the weeks I would be abroad. Sloane offered access to a hotel conference room, then stopped and corrected herself. Would that support be useful, or would you prefer I not involve myself? It would be useful, I said. She smiled. Permission changed the meaning of generosity. On the 30th day, my calendar remained empty after 6 in the evening. At 6:01, 3 separate invitations arrived. No emergency colors. No priority overrides. No hidden guests. Evelyn asked whether I would join her for breakfast at a small bookshop cafe on Sunday. The invitation included a note, 45 minutes, extendable only by mutual agreement. Juno asked me to visit the public planetarium on Friday night. Her note said, "Real stars, no robots." I checked. Sloane asked me to have dinner at a neighborhood restaurant she did not own. Her note said, "A table for 2, visible from the street, with no private room and no agenda." Each invitation contained 2 buttons. Accept. Decline. For almost 20 minutes, I pressed neither. Then I opened a 4th calendar entry first. My first day as an executive fellow. I confirmed the travel schedule, protected the preparation time, and marked it non-negotiable. Only then did I return to the invitations. I accepted all 3. Separately. On my terms. Evelyn's breakfast lasted longer only because I asked. At the planetarium, Juno offered her hand and waited until I placed mine in it. Sloane's imperfect neighborhood dinner was interrupted twice, yet she laughed and said she preferred it to every private room she owned. "Because you chose to be here," she told me. After the 3 dates, we met in my office. Not theirs. Mine. Evelyn sat on the left side of the sofa. Juno sat on the right. Sloane took the chair opposite them. Nobody placed a seat in the middle for me. I remained behind my desk until the professional part of the day ended at 6. Then I joined them. "I am not choosing a winner," I said. Juno opened her mouth. "Do not say you are comfortable sharing until we define what that means." She closed it. We talked for 2 hours. We discussed jealousy, privacy, public appearances, conflict, and the difference between affection and access. Evelyn admitted she would struggle with uncertainty. Juno admitted she would struggle with impulse. Sloane admitted she was very good at making control look like care. I admitted I wanted each of them. Not equally in every moment. Not for the same reasons. But honestly, we agreed there would be no shared schedule managed by anyone except me. No one would use employees to arrange personal contact, no gifts above a modest limit without discussion, no appearing at my home uninvited, no business consequence for any personal disagreement. Any one of us could pause the arrangement without punishment. And emergencies? Juno asked. If a building is on fire, call emergency services. What if I miss you urgently? Use words. She considered that with the gravity of a new engineering problem. I miss you urgently, she said. Evelyn looked irritated. She meant in the future. I am testing the protocol. Sloane smiled. It appears functional. I laughed. The sound loosened something in the room. For months, they had competed to keep me between them. Now they were learning how to stand beside me. The change became public at the next Aurora board meeting. The executive table had 4 nameplates: Evelyn Voss, Juno Park, Sloane Delacroix, Mara Ellis. Mine had been placed between theirs again. The board secretary apologized and reached to move it. Leave it, I said. All 3 women looked at me. I picked up my nameplate, walked to the head of the table, and placed it there. Then I looked back at them. You may sit beside me. Evelyn reached the chair on my left first. Juno protested that walking speed should not determine emotional priority. Sloane calmly took the chair on my right while they argued. The board members stared. I opened the meeting. Project Aurora expanded, and my office became permanent. Coordinators who had been called essential finally received matching titles, salaries, and authority. I completed North Star. Evelyn, Juno, and Sloane attended my graduation, asking before they joined my family, my photographs, or my hands. They still competed. They still became jealous, but they learned that wanting my time did not create a right to it. And I learned that independence did not require loneliness. 1 year after the night of the 3 false alerts, I received 3 messages at 2:13 in the morning. I was awake in a hotel room during my final North Star residency. Evelyn's message said, "No emergency. I saw your presentation. You were exceptional." Juno's said, "Also no emergency. The moon looks strange here. I wish you could see it." Sloane said, "Absolutely no emergency. Your flight arrives at 9. May we meet you at the airport?" I smiled at the screen. Then I wrote one answer to all 3. Yes, but breakfast first, and I choose the table. 3 hearts appeared almost immediately. No black code, no red code, no gold code. Just 3 powerful, complicated women waiting for permission to love me properly. I closed my laptop and looked over the city lights beyond the window. For years, I had believed success meant becoming so useful that nobody could let me go. I had been wrong. Real success was having the power to leave and being loved without anyone trying to stop me. 3 Yandere CEOs could still compete for a place on my personal calendar, but none of them would ever control my future again.